Hey, how many carbs do you think that is? Dad, I think I left my phone at home. Did you remember to pre-bolus? Son, you need some sugar. Do these sound familiar to anybody in this room? Raise your hands. Yeah, everybody. I got a couple more for you. Crap, my phone didn't charge last night, Dad. Did you already do a correction? Is tonight a pod change night? I can't remember. These are all things you would have heard in my house before I built Gluroo. This happened every night, literally every night. I'm Greg Badros. I'm the founder of Gluroo. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for coming. Quick reminder, Gluroo does not provide medical device. It's not for making dosing decisions. You always got to use the first-party device and follow your doctor's recommendations. To get started, I'm going to share a little bit about my story. I'm listed here as a Dr. Greg Badros, but I'm neither a physician nor do I play one on TV. I'm a tech nerd of the highest degree, I suppose. I got a PhD from University of Washington in Seattle in computer science and engineering, and then helped build Excel way back in the day, and more recently led engineering teams at Google. And my most recent gig was reporting to Zuck at Facebook as a VP product engineering there. Before Meta, before all the scandals, when you liked Facebook, okay? That's when I was there. But the part of my story that brings us together here today started 25 days, 4 months, and 6 years ago in February of 2020. My wife, 3 kids, and I were coming back from a ski trip, and my son was drinking constantly. When he wasn't drinking constantly, he was peeing constantly, and he was exhausted. He didn't even want to go skiing on the trip. Well, we thought he probably had a urinary tract infection, and of course it wasn't that. His pediatrician did a urine test, and sure enough, there was sugar in his urine, literally the definition of diabetes mellitus. And a blood glucose meter reading confirmed that his blood sugar was 481. So we were lucky. We caught it early. There was just small amounts of ketones in his blood. We spent forever that Thursday night in the emergency room, got 6 units of Lantus, and went home with an appointment the next day to go to Stanford, their pediatric endocrinology department, for training on what it means to be have type 1 diabetes. We got wonderful training there, and we were drinking from the fire hose for sure, as I'm sure all of you felt the same way. This is my son, Jax, as he was putting his CGM sensor on for the very first time. So of all the rooms in the world, I don't need to explain to you how scary that was. Luckily, we learned fast, and 2 weeks later, everything shut down because of COVID-19, March 2020, right? That gave us a little bit of a breather. Right? We had a little bit of time to figure things out, and so I started researching all the diabetes apps that were out there, and none of them were really right for us. We looked at things like My Sugar and SugarMate, and none of them were quite right for us. So because of the quarantine, we weren't leaving the house. We actually started with a decidedly non-techie solution, the paper logbook that Stanford had given us. And I wrote everything down, how many units, how many carbs, and then I would type them into a Google Sheets later in the week and then try to do my analysis to do basal titration adjustments and stuff like that. We were MDI at the time. But I knew that carrying around dead trees wasn't the long-term answer. And before long, we switched to an off-the-shelf messaging program. I had just been running the Facebook Messenger team, so we chose Facebook Messenger. And we basically invented shorthand. Like here you see you can't see black on black, but one starburst 5 minutes ago was what I would text to tell my wife that, oh, I just corrected his hypoglycemia with 1 starburst. He was 7 at the time, so it was mostly my wife and I texting back and forth. But it was a way for us all to stay in sync about his care. And before long, so that idea, using a group messaging program with shorthand, was really the seed of the idea for Gluroo. And we started building the app that summer in 2020. If you jump forward to today, we have thousands of fantastic reviews on the app in the Play Store, Android or iOS. And almost 250,000 people are using Gluroo. And they span over 100 different countries worldwide. We do machine translations to lots of languages. I highly recommend using it in English if you can, because that's the one that I actually read. The French isn't awful. 4 years of French class sort of helped. Now, this popularity of the app is in large part because Gluroo is this comprehensive digital solution used in a whole lot of different ways by a whole lot of different people in a whole lot of different situations. So each of these rows here represents kind of one of the decision points, whether you're type 1 or type 2 or gestational diabetes or whatever, whether you're using a CGM all the time or never using a CGM or whatever. Today, because of who we are in this room, we're going to zoom in on what it's like for just these bolded cases, for the most part. We'll talk a little bit about the breadth. But we're going to focus on type 1 diabetes, using a CGM full-time or almost full-time, taking insulin, of course. If you're type 1, you're going to be taking insulin either via a pump, it can be automated or manual, or doing MDI via a pen or even syringes out of a vial. But the reason I point out this variety is because I want to be sure you leave here knowing that Gluroo can help in lots of different situations, can be useful to lots of different people. And in fact, 94% of our users are actually adults self-managing with diabetes or prediabetes or gestational diabetes or some related condition where they want to log food and other medicines and so forth. That said, the 6%, like me and like many of you in this room, are our biggest champions and our most engaged users by far. So what does it mean to use Gluroo collaboratively? Okay, in my family and in many of yours, there's somebody with diabetes that a group of you are helping support. We call that group coordinating care, including the person with diabetes. That group we call the Glue Crew. Each member of the Glue Crew uses their own device, their own account, and they interact with others in the Glue Crew to keep track of everything that's going on. Any event that's related to your diabetes care. It's kind of like that group messaging scenario that inspired this situation. So let me walk you through a video from the very early days. This is like a 3-year-old video now, but it gives you an idea of how the system works. So I'm going to show you 2 devices. The first one's a mom on an Android phone, and the second's her daughter, Anna, on an iPhone. So here, a mother's using her Android phone to text with that daughter, Anna, who has diabetes. Anna, on the iPhone on the left here, responds back to share details of her dinner with her mom and her whole Glue Crew. The app is understanding. See this little icon here? That's showing that it understands that it's food, and it's tracking that 65 grams of carbs now on board in the top left header here. Okay? The conversation continues here, and the mom's reminding her to bolus, and she logs the details of her bolus. And that bolus then gets added to the 0.3 units that Gluroo is already tracking from earlier in the day. 0.3 jumped up to 4.8 units in the top left, so that they can track the insulin on board through the remainder of that evening. Each of those entries ends up in this log, and each of those entries gets tagged not just with who sent it, the time that it was sent, but also the blood sugar reading at the time that it was sent. So that's the basic idea. You're coordinating care through a group chat metaphor with the extra information kind of understood by the system to provide some decision support. Now I'm going to go through some of the principles that guide the way Gluroo works to give you a deeper understanding of what we built. There's really 4 things that we try to do. First and foremost, and I'm going to spend the most time on this, is logging health events. Anything diabetes related belongs in the log and is there for historical purposes and to communicate among all the members of the Glue Crew. Second, Gluroo tries to make that information available to you when you need it, exactly how you need it, in a form that you can use. Lets you offload data from your brain so that you're not constantly thinking about, got to remember, Thursday's a pod change night, Thursday's a pod change night. You stop worrying about that because you're going to get a notification telling you Thursday's pod change night when it's Thursday, when you need that information, rather than having to keep it in your head all the time. Third, we try to help you understand the data to discover patterns and learn about how things are going. And of course, we do all of this to try to improve health outcomes. But I'm going to tell you a secret. I didn't even build Gluroo for my son. I built it for me. I wanted me to stay sane. I thought I could be a better dad if I was sane, okay? So when I say improve health outcomes, I don't just mean about your child. I mean keeping you guys stable, supportive, and not crazy, improving the dynamics of the family relationship, because you're not texting your kid about diabetes on their preferred texting channel. You relegate all that to Gluroo, right? And you don't have to fight as much about this stuff. So I'll start by talking about how Gluroo helps build the comprehensive Gluroo event log. We take those letters, G-E-L, and we call it the gel, because it sounds kind of cool. So it's the gel. And in the gel is a list in chronological order, just like a chat messaging app, of all of the things that you've logged. So here's an example of a more complicated thing that's logged, a meal. And I'm going to walk you through the parts of a gel entry or an item in the message log. Think of this as just a chat message, but it's announcing something, and it's a permanent part of your log that Gluroo understands the structure of. So the top left of this is the person who sent the message. This is important. You can see what the school nurse did versus what you did versus what your wife did versus what your son did versus what your daughter did, okay? Or the babysitter or whoever. Everything's attributed to somebody. At the far right on that same row is a blood glucose level at the time of the message, at the time that that thing was logged, and the time that it was logged. So this was logged at 12:25, blood sugar was 154. Okay, that's important context for why this was logged. Blood sugar intervention, 54, 2 starbursts. Okay, that makes sense. I understand why he had 2 starbursts, because he was low. Okay. You actually can even open a chart. If you hit that little caret on the chevron on the top right, that'll open a chart in line and let you see what's going on. Under that, just under that, there's a little icon there. It's not always there. If it's there, it means that it's a structured message, and it's telling you the type of the entry. In this case, it's a meal entry. That'd be a different icon for a dosing basal message. It'd be a different one for a bolus. It'd be a different one for a finger prick, whatever. Okay? And then certain messages, the message bubble contains the content of the message. In this case, it's the picture of the meal, some tags like it was a high protein, high fat meal. The description that's auto-generated, you don't have to type that in. Macronutrient summary, carbs, sugar, fiber, protein, fat, and calories. And some messages will have a call to action at the bottom. We'll see what the Show Similar Meals button does a little bit later in my talk. Okay, so that's what messages look like in the log. How do they get there? Okay, well, there's 5 ways that they get there. And the first and easiest way for things to get in the log is to not have to do it yourself. You set it up an integration, and it happens completely automatically. Okay, we have lots of automatic integrations at varying levels of maturity. They span from CGM integrations, of course, through pump integrations, through just other platform integrations. So I'll talk through a bunch of these, and I'll start with CGM integrations. So CGM integrations, we support the big 2, Dexcom G7 and Abbott Freestyle 2, 3, 2 plus, 3 plus. You know, I don't know who comes up with their names. I think if a plus is at the end, it's 15 days or something like that. I don't know. But luckily, my software does know. We've built up, and we understand the expiry times of different CGMs and so forth, so we can provide reminders appropriately. Gluroo can also get CGM data. Is anyone using Night Scout or know what Night Scout is? Handful of people? Okay, yeah. So if you're using Night Scout, anything that can push data into Night Scout can also push data into Gluroo synchronously, real time. We just have a work-alike that works like Night Scout for getting data in. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then on Android, any app, if you're using some crazy CGM that just pops up a notification saying what the number is, we can pull that number in and share it with the rest of the Glue crew and provide a follow solution. Okay, how many's on Dexcom? Quick show of hands. Libra? It's Dexcom. Dexcom wins here. Our table is next to the Abbott booth, so come look at the Abbott booth and come to our table though, okay? The Dexcom booth was too crowded, I guess. I don't know. We're really close to the Libra guys. One of the cool things we do is we use that notification mechanism. If your PWD is on an Android phone, I know when they become teenagers, it's hard to keep them on Android. They all want their iPhones, but I'm a Google guy, so my son's on Android. If they're on Android, we can watch those notifications, and even when Dexcom follow is down, which used to be a big problem 2-3 years ago, it's gotten better lately, but even when Dexcom was down, we could share those data with the other people in the Glue crew. And that just worked by reading the notifications from the app, the G7 app on an Android phone. We'd report them to the rest of the Glue crew. Only works for a person with diabetes on Android. How many people are using, we're going to talk more about pumps integration now. Who's using an OP5, an Omnipod 5? Okay, and who's using like a Tandem maybe? Okay, Twist, any Twisters yet? So like somebody didn't raise your hand, what are you using? What are you using? DIY loop? Yeah. What was it? iLet, okay, yep. And what was the other one over here? MDI, okay, great. Yeah, we'll talk about all of those cases. The iLet we don't cover quite yet, but we've had requests for it, and we're looking at it. So if you're on OP5, with the caveat that you got to have the PWB on Android right now, we do have a real-time Insulet OP5 integration. We are the only game in town, literally the only game in town, if you want to see what's going on your kid's OP5 from a parent's device or phone. Okay? And the way that it works is we show the information, like whether it's an automated, manual, or limited mode. We show the reported insulin on board, the battery life of that device, how old that reading is, and so forth. We show all that stuff there. This is all read from the notifications on the Android phone. We do log approximate bolus amounts. So if you look at my son's log, everything that he does on his OP5 is copied off into the log for the entire Glue crew to see. We'll estimate the carbs off of that, and it works by reading those notices. Now, if you want this to work with your iPhone, Insulet has a table over in the exhibit hall, and you need to go talk to Insulet, okay? And tell them, we've been talking to them for 4 years, but maybe if 30, 40 of you go talk to them, they'll finally decide that they want to prioritize partnering. It's a challenge because so much of their market is adults that are self-managing, that they haven't prioritized a good follow program for this. But we would love to do this, but we need their support to do it because Apple doesn't allow notification behaviors the same way that Android does. Okay? So go talk to Insulet, tell them you want to see Gluroo. Now, hope is not all lost. If your teenager or anyone decide that they've got to have an iPhone for whatever crazy reason, I mean, Apple is down the street from where I live too. But again, I tend to use Android more. We do have a Gluco integration. This, unfortunately, is not real-time because it doesn't upload in real time. There is a delay, but it's good for retrospective analysis and getting all of the data in one place ultimately. We'd love Insulet to support a real-time integration, but it doesn't work quite yet. If you're using another pump, I don't know if the iLet uploads to Gluco or not, but if it does, this will work on that as well. Now, there are a handful of other pump integrations. Next two we'll talk about work the same way, the Twist and I'm going to talk about AAPS and DIY Loop. So if you're using those, you basically take your Night Scout instance and you replace it with Gluroo's Global Connect, okay? And then we just give you a URL, we give you an API secret, you plug those into DIY Loop or AAPS or IAPS or Trio, any of those open source solutions. And now, instead of talking to Night Scout, you're directly talking to Gluroo, real-time synchronous, and we track profiles, we track the carbs, we track the, everything that's entered and make it available to everybody else. John Fawcett's a good friend, and Loop, it's kind of an alternative to Loop Follow, which is especially necessary, again, if maybe a parent is on Android, some of those solutions you have to be 100% iPhone for them to work. So if you want to follow somebody looping or using Trio or whatever on an Android, this is a great way to do it. Our DGC also works if you're trying to pull Night Guard in, and it just is a way to get data in and out of the system. Okay. Last two pump integrations I'll mention are Tandem's T-Slim X2, which I saw a bunch of you, or Mobi. They're basically the same from a digital perspective. And Sequel Medtech's Twist, their new pod, their new pump. Both of these kind of work the same way. They use their follow service and just do cloud-to-cloud connections. The Twist one is almost real-time. The Tandem one's a little bit further delayed. This is because Tandem doesn't upload their data frequently enough for it to be super real-time. But again, works great for retrospective analysis. And I think Tandem also has a booth over there. Go talk to them, tell them that real-time matters to you and that you want it to work with Gluroo. Rumor has it that they're trying to make it work with SugarMate. Big difference between SugarMate and Gluroo is SugarMate thinks that you're one person. I think it's critical to understand if the school nurse did something separate from my wife, separate from me. I think it could save my marriage one day to know the difference between those three cases, okay? And it certainly will save a lot of fights. Finally, the last of our automated integrations that I'll talk about for getting data in is just the health platform of your choice on your phone. So Apple Health or Google Health Connect, whatever. If you're using like Medtronic InPen, any automated BLE pen, the InPen's the only one I know about that will write into Apple Health directly. We can pull those data in so that you get those insulin boluses in relatively close to real time so that everybody in the Glue crew can see it. Exercises pull in whether you're on a Wear OS watch or an Apple Watch. Can pull in off of the PWD's watch and pull all that information into Gluroo as well. We pull in heart rate data. We've been doing a little bit with step counts and sleep tracking as well. So that's more to come. Okay, so that's the end of the automatic integrations. The ones that those are the ones that you just set up and let them go. Now we're going to talk about manual logging. So if you're trying to log meals, there's two ways to log meals that are really cool. The first and most popular one is just taking a picture of your meal. So you literally can tap our camera button, point and shoot at a image, and out pops a description of the image with macronutrients and the list of ingredients and so forth. This thing on the right you can edit. If you think, well, that's not enough carbs, that actually, there's a pancake underneath the eggs here that's like got an extra 40 grams of carbs that the camera couldn't see. You can edit that yourself. They're just best guesses based on what the photo shows, but it's a great start. And the photo saves in a log too, so you can still go back and remember what that meal was for at least a little while. You're not going to forget what it was that you ate. Okay? You can scan barcodes, QR codes from sensors and devices. We'll see that a little bit later too. Now sometimes for a simple meal or one that you've just prepped, it's easier to just describe the meal. So you can just hit the microphone, say, for dinner I'm having pizza with mushrooms and pepperoni, and we'll do the best that we can analyzing that. Again, you can edit it. After you edit it, you hit send, it saves in the log, and you're golden. Okay? Now the fourth way to build up your gel is just by manually logging it using this tap to enter UI. So you can hit this plus button in the bottom left of your screen, okay? And you'll see a palette of all the different things that you can enter. And for example, here we're going to hit plus, and we're going to log an intervention snack. So we hit the sugar on the far right there, and then it's a palette of all the different intervention snacks that we've set up. There's a couple built in, but you set it up however you want. If you use gummies, great, set it up. If you use Starburst like my family does, you set it up and list them here. What I want to call your attention to here, this is your chart showing the recent CGM readings, and this purple line is the forecast of what's going, of what we think things look like based on the carbs on board. There's 2 grams of carbs on board, 0.5 units of sugar on, 0.5 units of insulin on board, 2 grams of carb. We think that this is going to be a real low, and that purple line shows it. But the minute you choose your sugar intervention, I'm going to pick 6 ounces here. See how my forecast adjusts? And you can like tap different things and see it adjust different ways and decide, all right, well, based on the numbers, right? Again, just approximations, but they're meant to try to help you. This looks like he's going to get back in range reasonably quickly and do the right thing. And if you hit 8 ounces, you'll see that, well, he's just going to go higher. It's not going to really help. 6 is plenty, right? And so that can help you. Then you tap the check button in the bottom right, saves to the log, sends to everybody. Everybody knows what's going on. Again, gets logged with the blood sugar reading and the time and the person who did it, right? The person who logged it, right? One of the nice things is I never have to take my son's phone from him. Sometimes I'll log from my own phone to help him out. If he's in bed, I'll log the sugar that he takes Sometimes he'll log the sugar if it got him up. Whoever logs it, it's recorded as, okay? There's lots of plus menu action trays. Here I'll show you tapping to enter a finger prick reading. Each menu option has a customized action tray for each of them. Here's if you want to log water. We're going to log that we drank 11 ounces. Hydration is super important. Medicine reminder. You can configure what medicines show. You can even configure medicine reminders. We'll talk about that later. And symptoms. If you want to be able to record symptoms, you can record. We're going to set a custom symptom of dizzy. And we're going to add that to our palette here. Just show you how quick it is. And then you could tap dizzy. And we'll save the change. And then you could tap dizzy, which now is in our menu, and save it if you wanted to, right? All really easy, all pretty customizable. Insulin logging is an important thing to be able to log. There's some extra support here. If you know your ISF and carb ratio by time of day, you can split it by time of day with a target, an ISF, and a carb ratio. And then what we'll do is, when you do have a recent meal announcement, here we've got 60 grams of carb, 5 grams of fiber. We've configured him to be net carbs for dosing. So 55 grams, if I tap the plus menu and then bolus, my left column here, we hit dosing table, my left column shows 55 grams net carbs is going to be 5.5 units. You can change it. And then his current number was 154, so that's 0.5 units. We hit copy button in the top right, boom, and then we hit paste button here, and then hit the check button, and it logs the 6 units of insulin. Okay, again, this is not a dosing calculator. This is not a bolus calculator. It's just facilitating your logging based on what your doctor's prescription was. Okay? Finally, the last of the 5 ways to get data in the log is by understanding text messages, using natural language processing. You can type anything that you want into the messages. You can use it as general chat. If you use an @ it'll buzz the @ person's phone a little bit louder. You can use hashtags to make it easy to search and so forth. But Gluroo understands certain things. Like if you type 45G, we understand 45G to mean 45 gram carb announcement, okay? You can add extra details like bagel with cream cheese, or even add other macronutrients, 45 grams, 8 grams of fat, right? Whatever. And we'll interpret this, we'll add it to your carbs on board, and we'll understand how it decays over time. If you're logging insulin, couldn't be easier. You can type something as simple as 2U, okay? And that will log that you just did an injection for the MDI folks, just did an injection of 2U. You can type dose of 2U, hashtag pen, or hashtag Lumjev. Sometimes we use Lumjev when my son's got a sticky high. We'll give him an injection instead of relying on his OP5 to bring him down. I like to record that it was a Lumjev thing so we can see how that's comparing. If you're logging basal, we provide basal reminders, again, for MDI. If you're logging basal manually, you just can enter 10U basal. And we know that it's basal, not Humalog, not Novolog. We know the difference, okay? Low interventions, we saw how to do it with the plus menu. You can also literally just type 1SB or 5SB if you've configured SB to mean starburst. Or just type 20G of apple juice or whatever, okay? Logs the intervention, knows how that's going to hit, or has an idea of how that's going to hit, so it can update a forecast on your chart for you. Finger prick readings couldn't be easier. You just add the suffix FP to the number. You can configure whether you're millimoles. Does anybody use millimoles in the room? We're all, well, yay, woohoo. Almost everybody in the US uses milligrams per deciliter. But we support millimoles and have 100,000 people in Europe and Canada that use it. Logging exercise, say how long, what strenuous level, whether it was low, medium, or high, and a description if you want, whether it was walk or swimming or tennis, whatever. These all get understood by the NLP engine. And finally, logging a new device. You just type if you were texting your wife or your husband that you changed the device, what would you say? You'd say, well, I changed to a new sensor. If you type that, we understand it. We know what it is. We know when that sensor is going to expire based on which sensor you've told us you're using. You can log things like the code. If you're soaking a Dexcom G7 sensor and you need to remember the code to start it later or something like that, we remember the code. We remember the lot number, so that if there's a problem, you can go back and refer to the lot number to report the problem to Omnipod or Dexcom or whatever. They've been having some problems lately. So We intend to actually add the lookup of recalls as well. So in the future, when you scan a QR code from a device, we'll look up whether it's been recalled and try to tell you that. Okay, so these were the 5 ways to put data in your gel. We've covered all of them. And once the data is in the gel, does anybody here not make mistakes? Who is it that does not make mistakes? Right, not me either. I don't know why I'm raising my hand, right? We all make mistakes. So you can curate the log. You can hit a message. It brings up this context menu. You can remove, you can edit. Here we can go in and we can change the carbs after the fact. We can change the sugar after the fact. You can update these things. Sometimes we'll go back and update a meal where it's like he didn't finish the whole meal. And we're like, oh, it's only half the carbs, just so that the forecast looks better, right? Looks more accurate. If you tap it, and then if you want to change the time, you can tap it and then just swipe left or right. If you swipe left, it'll go back in time. If you swipe right, maybe it already did it, I can't remember. It'll go back in time or forward in time. You can do that too. Or you can hit set time and pick a time off of a clock. That's easy too. All right. So now we've got a comprehensive log of all of our stuff. We've got a gel. And now I want to talk about how Gluroo makes it easier for you to do stuff with that comprehensive interleaved log of all of these different data types. Because so far it just sounds like work, right? It's like more logging, okay? So I want to show you how it helps. How it makes it easy. So one of our most popular features is the way Gluroo puts your CGM values in charts anywhere you want it. So whether I don't usually wear 2 watches, this is for demonstration purposes. You can either use your Wear OS, Galaxy, or Pixel watch, or an Apple watch, whatever. We can put your numbers on a watch. If you're using an iPhone, the dynamic island here, or a lock screen widget, Android widget, the alarm clock mode on an iPhone, even CarPlay, Apple CarPlay, we can get it on a calendar, or you can use iOS widgets on CarPlay and so forth. This feature of getting your number and chart in useful places, other surfaces, is so popular. We actually did a spin-off app earlier this year called GotCGM. You can go to gotcgm.com, and it just provides this functionality super easy without any of the logging complexity, right? For some people, this is exactly the tool that they need. They don't need the full-blown Gluroo thing. There's no reason to use both. There's one reason to use both. The one thing GotCGM can do is that it will write into Apple Health your Dexcom or Libre numbers. Dexcom already does it natively. Libre does not. That's useful to our people in Europe for sure that are using Libre more. You can get the numbers anywhere. Can anybody guess what this screen in Gluroo is for? Any guesses? Just yell it out. A heads-up display on a car with a windshield. That's right. If you set your phone, you put it in this mode, you set your phone on the top of your dashboard on your car, and then look at your windshield, you can read the number. See? I'll flip it for you if you don't believe me. There you go. Okay? Great little feature. It's not just about seeing your number. We'll make a phone call in the middle of the night to tell you that Junior is low. Okay? You can even split the night into shifts if you want. Okay? And we'll call a different number at different times of the day. You can't rely on this functionality, but it's a nice to have because there's data connection issues. You know, again, first-party device only for emergency situations, but we do a best effort on making these phone calls for you. We talked before about tracking carbs on board and insulin on board. They show all the time in the header, along with your chart and so forth. Gives you the pump level intelligence, okay? So the idea is we know how different kinds of insulin decay over time. We know how different kinds of food decay over time, okay? So if you're having a donut with 60 grams of carbs, of which 58 grams are sugar, Gluroo will model that as being completely digested and no longer impacting your blood sugar in like 55 minutes, okay? The carbs on board will go to 0 very quickly. If, on the other hand, it's like pizza with a whole lot of protein and a whole lot of fat, it's going to model that as taking 4 hours to get fully out of your system. And the same 60-gram carbs is going to take 4 hours to decay to 0 if it's a pizza announcement. So we look at the macronutrients and we understand that stuff. And it's not just about now. So this is now in this picture, okay? And we're inspecting this time. It's a little hard to see on the screen, but there's like a faint blue line. That's showing your insulin activation. And the faint yellow line is showing your carb activation. And at this spot, you can see that the insulin activation is way more than the carb activation. Okay? Later on, the carb activation takes over, right? But you can ask Gluroo to forecast, and it'll show you, okay, based on that understanding of the carbs on board, insulin on board, here's where we think your blood sugar is going to go. Because the name of the game, as many of you have probably realized, is we're just trying to match carbs to insulin. That's all that it's about. I don't want to oversimplify it, because the way that carb gets absorbed and the way that insulin gets absorbed takes degrees way beyond anything I know. But that's the name of the game, is making these two curves look the same. And if you can make those two curves look the same, you're going to have much better outcomes. If you happen to be supporting multiple different people with diabetes, you can easily switch among people with diabetes. I have 2 girls as well. As of now, they don't have symptomatic diabetes, but because I have 3 kids, I built it so it would work if you had 3 kids who needed support. And this is the only app out there that's going to do this for you. You just tap the avatar on the top, and then you get a list of the other people you can switch to. Works great for school nurses or things like that as well. Talked about medicine reminders. So you can configure when the reminders show, what the medicines are, and it'll impact the plus menu in your log. If you're not on a CGM, I think most of us here are, but a lot of our type 2s, people with prediabetes, they just need a reminder to do a blood glucose meter reading in the morning. They need a reminder to do it 1 hour after any meal that they log and stuff like that. So you configure this here. If you're using a new sensor and you want to do a double check, like if you switch to the Eversense sensor and you want to be reminded to do blood glucose checks at certain times, this is a great feature for you. Okay. And of course, one of the most stressful things for me has always been remembering and being prepared for device changes. What day is the next device change? When's the next thing? And I found myself constantly trying to maintenance rehearsal is what they call it when you repeat something in your head again and again so you don't forget it. And it kind of sucks because it distracts you from all the other stuff you're trying to do with life. Okay, so you can push that out of your brain, rely on Gluroo to track these kinds of things. And the way that you track a sensor is really simple. You point the Gluroo camera at the QR code on the thing, and it'll recognize what sensor it is. It's a G7 with its code and with its serial number, and we send it. And we send that it's activated, because at G7 you can decouple activation. Here we're doing the same with an OP5. Grabs the lot number. So if there's a failure later on, you can go back and look at the lot number and call up Insulet and say, hey, yeah, it's this lot number and so forth. Okay? Then, anytime that you want, we'll push notifications to you when things are going to expire. Normally that only shows up on the person with diabetes phone. You got to look at your kid's phone and know, hey, is the G7 expiring? When's it? I can't remember when we put it on. When's it expiring? Well, now it's on your phone too. Okay. On the status tab, it'll show all of your stuff. In this case, I only had the G7 sensor, but it shows your progress, when it's going to expire, the code number and the serial number and so forth. And you can tap history to see all the last. It looks like I got 16 sensors in this account. Okay. As I've mentioned, a whole lot of what Gluroo does is put stuff in your notifications with quick action buttons so that you don't even have to open the app sometimes. So when my son's OP5 is going to expire, I get a push notification saying it's going to expire tonight. And then tonight I get a notification saying it's going to expire in 3 hours or whatever. And it knows about grace periods and stuff like that. We try not to buzz you in the middle of the night and things like that as well. But we do a good job with putting push notifications to help surface the information that's relevant to you when it's relevant to you. Now, the last thing we'll talk about in this section is our patented smart reminders. And when I look at my watch, I'm checking my kid's number. You know the deal. I'm not looking at the time. He's 80. He's fine. But the last thing we'll talk about is smart reminders. Imagine you're coming to dinner as a family when Junior's sugar starts to go low. Well, with other follow-up, what happens? You get 3 buzzing phones at the dinner table. Okay? I hated this. I despised this. I felt like it was ruining dinner. So Gluroo does it differently. We think better. Instead of buzzing all the phones, Junior's phone buzzes. My son was 7 when he was diagnosed. He was already old enough to take care of Lowe's on his own. Okay, so his phone buzzes. Okay, and he gets a push notification saying, hey, you're low or you're about to go low. What do you want to do? And you can either log that you're starting eating or log that you're taking a Starburst or 2 Starbursts or whatever. And when he does that, our forecast updates, we say, oh, he's all clear, and we don't buzz everybody else's phone. We just leave them, okay? Dexcom Follow might still buzz your phone, and they're the first-party app, and you need to keep using them, but we're not going to buzz you again, because alarm fatigue is real. Now, if and only if Junior does not handle that notification with a logging of some sugar intervention or logging of starting food, if and only if there's like, I think it's 2.5 minutes or maybe it's 3 minutes goes by before something happens. And we also do it for an extreme low situation. If things look bad, like things are going down fast, we'll do it anyway. But only when they don't log do we then log the next person, okay? Only then do we escalate to one of the other members of the Glue crew. And we do this in order. We don't buzz everybody all at once. We figure somebody will take care of it. So you know you're the only person getting buzzed. There's no more, oh, well, my husband will take care of it or my wife will take care of it. If you get it, you know you're the only one getting it at that time, and you should do something about it. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about how to learn from this and just a handful of the other capabilities here. You know by now that one of our core ideas is that getting a comprehensive log of all the diabetes-related events is really helpful, okay? What one person considers a complete log might seem burdensome to somebody else, so we really let people log as much or as little as they want to. We try to give you more benefit for logging more, but we don't force your hand. So one of the places where you can see this principle is in comprehensive charting. So if we tap the blood sugar, the 172 in the top right there, our chart will drop down, and you can see not only does it show all the CGM data, but the little goldenrod things on the top, those are carb announcements. The blue bars on the bottom, those are insulin announcements, and so forth. And if you had a quick eye, you could even see like an A meant automated mode of the OP5, and M meant manual mode. You can see all of that stuff, and you can see carbs on board, insulin on board. Again, incremental logging gives you incremental benefits. A lot of people just use it for the CGM chart, but if you log the stuff, it's there in the chart for you too, and you can see the forecasts and so forth. You log more, you get more value, but you don't have to. It's up to you. Our meals tab, this bottom tab navigation, our meals tab in the bottom here is another place where you can see the benefit of incremental logging. So if you show up at first on a new day, you'll just see this palette of all the different meals of the day for you to tap and take a picture of each of the meals through the day. When you do take a picture, it'll show both here and on the log screen, right? They're just different views of the same data set. Now, after you've got a complete day of logging, you get this nice breakdown. You can see kind of the full day macronutrient and CGM summary, and you can see for each meal, what were the carbs for that meal. Might be multiple different pictures that you took, like maybe, had seconds or have dessert or whatever, multiple different pictures, but they all get summed up there. This CGM summaries, you get an average, an extreme low, in-range percent, and a high percent, right? That's a very compact summary showing you how that meal behaved for your child. And if you tap down here at the details on chart, you can get an even deeper analysis, showing you the chart, showing you, so in this case, we see 60 grams of carbs and a whole bunch of insulin corrections. These are all automatic insulin corrections from the OP5 that are doing their best to sort of just barely keep this person in range. I think this is actual data from my son, actually, from 2 or 3 days ago when I took the screenshot. So I mentioned the similar meals functionality earlier. On messages with photos of meals, we've got the similar meals button. If you tap that, you can learn from your past data even before you've logged it, okay? And before you've bolused for it. So we can look and find, okay, these are 3 other breakfasts that looked kind of the same. They kind of had the same description, same macronutrients, and the pictures were similar. So we pull up the 3 most similar ones, we show how similar they are, and then let you tap between them, among them, and see what you did for each of them and how it went, right? And that might inform how you're going to bolus for it this time. You can also use our search functionality. We happen to tag sushi with hashtag sushi so that we can search for sushi and remember how it went the last time, because strangely my kids love sushi. I do too, but I guess we're Californians through and through. They love their sushi, and it's a challenging meal. So we like to be able to remember how much we were bolusing the last time we were at that restaurant. Gluroo will send weekly summary emails out, so you can compare how things went 2 weeks ago to how things went last week. But it's not just statistics. We actually pull together this insights report that gives a bunch of explanation about patterns that we saw in kind of easy to read format, right? And their details are specific to you, right? They're not just like made up stuff. A bunch of the statistics you can also see in the app. So on the stats tab at the bottom left here, you can see a whole bunch of different tiles. You may not want all of these. You can just long press. They'll start to jiggle a little bit, and you can drag them around and arrange them the way that you want. The top row will get cut off by the chart anyway, so you put the ones you really like towards the bottom of the screen, and makes it easy to see these things. Now, the hamburger menu on the top left is what shows the general menu settings. In there, there's a troop section where you can sort of engage with the community around you. You can join or create a troop so that you can see multiple other PWDs. You're not a part of their glue crew. You can't log things on their behalf, but you can see their number, you can see their carbs on board, you can see their insulin on board, and you can send emoji to them. So if anyone's already using Gluroo, is anyone already using Gluroo? Oh, cool. Yay, thank you. You guys that are already using it, and all of the rest of you who I know are going to be rushing to install Gluroo and try it the minute I put the QR code up here, you can join the troop FFL Orlando 2026. Just go to menu, troops, and type that in and join that troop. And you'll see this is a couple of Gluroo folks over here are already in the group, and my son is there at the top there already in the group as well. Trophies let you track not just things that your group has logged. Here we've logged 50 team doses as of December 8th, 2024, but also individual doses or individual accolades and so forth. We're doing some more here to better motivate and support streak counting and things like that as well, so this is an area to watch. And finally, there's a bunch of other insights reports built in. You can export your data as CSV if you want to analyze it yourself. We're not trying to lock your data inside Gluroo at all. You can export as CSV. And for example, this chart is a really interesting one. This is hours since an Omnipod 5 site change and average blood glucose on the y-axis. And you can basically see that between hours like 16 and 30, blood sugar is really doing well, and it starts to degrade by day 3. Does anybody else see this behavior? Day 3 of the OP5 isn't as great? Yeah. So I've been trying to convince Insulet that they should just automatically increase the insulin on day 3 of an OP5, or equivalently decrease insulin days 1 and 2, right? It's regulatorily safer that you decrease insulin than that you increase. But this data could help inform that, right? There's more reports available at app.gluroo.com, the web app version of Gluroo. This is an interesting chart. We've got day of week along the y-axis, time of day here, and you can see for this patient on Friday and Saturday nights, this is a young adult, on Friday and Saturday nights, they have blood sugar control issues, okay? I'll leave it as an exercise to the reader to think why. So at the end of the day, our goal is to improve health outcomes. And again, I stressed, it's not just about the person with diabetes. It's for all of us in this room too. Caregiver burnout is real, and Gluroo can help. Working with your care teams is also an important part of improving health outcomes. So there's several ways to share with your care team. You can just search for your care team and see if they're already registered with Gluroo. Or if you don't find them or you just want to make it easy, you can get yourself a report mailed either to you or sent directly to a doctor if you know your email address. A lot of times we don't, and you get it sent to you, and then you upload it to MyHealth or MyChart or whatever. Whatever portal they use for HIPAA compliance. You do it that way. If they're looking at your group, they'll get a patient population dashboard like this. This is one that we actually built more for school nurses. That's kind of real time, shows a handful of people, the real-time numbers. If it's an old reading, it's struck out, time in range and stuff like that over there. There's a different version of it more for the endocrinologist's office, but they sort of get a patient population dashboard like this. If you're doing the insights report, it kind of looks like a Dexcom Clarity report or a LibreView report, okay? So this is showing, like, in this case, it's, you know, a 12-page, 15-page document. Ambulatory glucose profile is one of them. But we also have these cool, unique ones. This is one that's looking at your morning meal at t = 0 here, and how your blood sugar is done before and after that morning meal, okay? And so here we can see that on average, over the last 26 meals here that are shown in this chart, 2 hours later you went from 128 to 194. So that suggests maybe the carb ratio is a little bit off in the morning, or you should be a little bit more aggressive in bolusing for that meal. Again, as a general rule, it's just helping you find the pattern and helping your doctor see those patterns more easily. As I mentioned before, that web app is available to you. It's not just for reporting. You can see almost all of the data available in the mobile app. You do need to sign up for Gluroo inside the mobile app. We haven't done web app sign up. But once you signed up on the mobile app, you sign in using the same credentials, either Apple or Google login, same credentials on the web app, and you can see all the data from your desktop browser as well. This is actually really useful if anybody works in a top secret situation. Anybody not allowed to take their phone into the work? Dang, I was hoping somebody would have top secret clearance or something cool. But we have plenty of users that's a big deal. They can't carry their phone into their desk. And so being able to use it from a web app is helpful. Now, we've not done a randomized clinical trial yet, but we did a couple years ago do a retrospective data analysis. So what we basically did is took a user that signed up for Gluroo, and we looked at, I think, 60 days before and what their CGM readings were 60 days leading up to using Gluroo and 60 days after using Gluroo. And as we hoped, our hypothesis was that things would look better, and that proved statistically significantly correct. We did see an improvement in time in range and an improvement in glucose management index, like their estimated A1C went down after using Gluroo. Again, this was not a clinical trial. We didn't make them switch to Gluroo. They could have just been more motivated, and that's why. But at the end of the day, does it really matter? If Gluroo helps motivate you better, great. All right, thank you guys very, very much for coming. I appreciate it, and we'll be at the booth. Thank you.